Suge's now, right now. Then all of a sudden, my pager starts blowing up. I'm getting 50 phone calls from people from death row saying, get to Suge, hurry up, it's an emergency, get to Suge. Suge needs you right now. It's a meeting, get there. So finally, and then I get a phone call from my homeboy, Larry. And then I go over to Suge's, I get there, Reggie meets me outside. There's a zillion cars at Suge's driveway, right? Reggie meets me outside and he goes, look, he goes, I don't know what's gonna happen. He goes, but just go along with it and be real cool about it. He goes, I'm right here. He goes, this is bad, it's real bad. So now at this point, I mean, I'm like crying on the inside, like what? So I go sit down again at the pool, but this time there's several people at the table. There's Suge, David Kenner, his attorney. There was another gentleman, I don't remember his name, and then two of Suge's homeboys, and then Reggie. And Reggie basically is standing behind me, right? And I'm sitting next to Suge, and I do mean next to Suge, right? And Suge is hot. He's mad. And little did I know that Tupac was dying, and this is the reason for this atmosphere right now. Suge is asking me all kind of questions about what happened, security, where was your gun, security this and security that. And I'm sitting there and I'm feeling like, oh shit, I'm taking the heat. So I look at Reggie like, these are security questions. You need to answer these questions. So Reggie wasn't answering them. So I said, Suge, I go, I don't own Right Way Security. I work for Reggie. I go, there should have been more security with us. I go, I had already asked you and told you that we needed more bodyguards on Pac. I go, I asked for more security. I go, he goes, well, what happened to Michael Moore? He was with you that day. I said, he was called to go back over to 662. And every answer I gave Suge was answers that Reggie should have been giving Suge or Suge should have known. So then Suge says to me, he goes, no, I'm sorry, he says to Reggie, he goes, Reg, he goes, what's up? What was the breakdown in security? And Reggie was like, and Al was a supervisor, and now here's the finger being pointed again. So I'm sitting there still, and then all of a sudden the phone rings, right? Suge gets the phone, he had the phone, he answers the phone, and he stands up, and he throws the phone, bang, right across the table, right? I'm like, oh shit. I looked at the pool, and I go, I'm going for a swim. That's just how I felt. He turns around, and he says, can nobody fucking save him now? And he's in tears, right? And he goes, he just died. And I just start crying, right? As I'm crying, and I'm just like, Suge walks away, everybody at the table just gets up and everybody walks away. Reggie looks at me and he goes, go pack your shit, get out of Vegas. And I'm thinking, why?
Shakur's heart and respiratory system simply were overtaxed by the devastating gunshot wounds he suffered in a bold ambush a week ago. Word of his death brought legions of followers. Police have yet to identify any suspects, and now Shakur has died before detectives could even try to speak to him.
Showed my respect for Tupac. My brother was a good brother.
His words really give us strength to keep on moving and look forward to another day.
A lot of people's touched by it, not just rap music artists, listeners, lovers, but a lot of people, older people, is touched by this. This is a sad situation.
They came early and stayed late in Harlem, even in the rain, to remember Tupac Shakur and to promote peace in a rap world of violence.
We're here to say, well, let's make a turn from the bad to the good.
A lot of negativity out here, and the violence is going to take more than just Tupac's death to stop. I still don't think people's going to learn from it. I still think a lot of stuff is going to go on, a lot of killing, a lot of violence still. They're not going to learn nothing.
It's a cold, cold day in the rap, hip-hop music world. In case you haven't heard, it's been all over the media, all over the news, all over the radio. Tupac, rapper Tupac Shakur has passed away.
I would like to say condolences to Tupac's family.
I think he was a great person. I learned a lot about him by reading about him and everything, and he did a lot of good stuff for his community.
Let's go for another one, High KCEP.
A lot of our young brothers out there would start to get along a little bit better and stop coming up with the old adage when one looked at the other one that he's mad dogging me. And we would live a happier life, and things like this wouldn't have to happen.
All right, sir, that's well put, and of course, we thank you for taking time out of your busy afternoon to call us and share that knowledge with us.
That's very good, and my condolences does go out to Tupac's family.
I was calling to find out if did Tupac die?
He passed over an hour ago.
Calls about Tupac Shakur came to V103 within an hour of his death.
Is this really dead?
Yep.
DJs Greg Street and Sean Hudson call it an obvious loss to the rap industry.
It was a bad situation. I think he really got caught up into something that wasn't probably directed at him. But, it was just, something that happened.
I mean, I think that if he could have been able to continue with where he was going, I think you'd have seen a side of Tupac that, the people, he was going to grow to another level that he hadn't been at.
I start calling people, right? They're saying, dude, go get your shit, get out of Vegas, leave. I go, I can't even drive. Back to the car. Go. So he died. That was it. He died.
I mean, eulogy was the characteristic mode of his rap career, especially near the end when he's speaking about if I die tonight, how many brothers fell victim to the street. Death, I see death around the corner. All of these issues. But death was always linked to him in his own rhetoric to suffering. So for him, the rhetorical acknowledgement of death was always linked to its acknowledgement as a form of suffering. And why does God allow death and destruction to occur? If you listen to Unconditional Love, he says, asking his mama why he has this urge to die. And I think that it was because of the extraordinary pain that he endured. The abandonment of his mother and father, the desultory, peripatetic, that is, moving around, domestic life that he had where he was homeless. By the time he was in junior high in New York, in the ghettos of the Harlem and Manhattan and the Bronx, he had moved 22 times. He was at first not a gangster or a thug, but an artsy kind of bohemian rapper. And all of this caused him enormous difficulty because of his poetic gift. People laughed at him, or his clothes, because he didn't have many, laughed at him. And I think he endured an enormous amount of psychic and social suffering. And it came out in his music, and it came out with his rush to the grave, which was striking in one so young. There was a kind of complete denial of the possibility of hope. He proclaimed time and again, young, strapped, and don't give an F, hopeless, I'm hopeless. And that was his life.
People love to, have mercy and sympathy for everything, from the animals to the whales to fur to everything except us, your youth, the ones who you've given no attention to, who become adults with no compassion. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you walk by a street and you was walking on concrete and you saw a rose growing out of concrete, even if it had messed up petals and it was a little, you know, to the side, you would marvel at just seeing a rose grow through concrete. So why is it that when you see some ghetto kid grow out of all of the dirtiest circumstances and he can talk and he can sit across from you, make you smile, make you cry, make you laugh, all you can talk about is my dirty rose, my dirty stems, and how I'm leaning crooked to the side. You can't even see that I came up out of that.
Well, I think initially the sense I got in talking to different people was that people weren't talking. You know, and the police, they were putting out a little bit of information, and their thing was, well, no one would cooperate, no one would cooperate, no one would cooperate. You know, well, police don't end an investigation because nobody cooperates. You know, they continue. But Orlando Anderson, I think that was a little odd, that Orlando Anderson was taken into custody, and then, you know, I mean, he was actually questioned at the MGM Grand and decided to leave, and that should have been a red flag right there. And then he was taken into custody later and released, and they said, well, we don't have enough evidence.
Do you know about what time Orlando was released by the MGM security?
It was about I believe it was about 2.5 hours before the shooting. And also Orlando's reasons, and I got this from the cops and a couple of other different people, was Orlando Anderson gave several different reasons for why he was in Las Vegas. Number one, he said he was here for the fight. Then he said he bought tickets. Well, he came to town, he didn't have tickets, but he bought tickets. Well, that's almost impossible. And if so, he would have had to have $2,000 to get scalp tickets. So he didn't go to the fight, so he wasn't here for the fight. Then he told the police, well, he was here to gamble. He had driven in with his girlfriend. He was very inconsistent as to why he was in town to begin with. I think that's a red flag right there. And where was he during the shooting? I mean, he didn't have an alibi.
It began before dawn. The crime sweep involved 300 officers, 10 agencies, including the FBI, at more than 37 locations in the Compton, Linwood, and Long Beach areas. Compton police say the arrests were for local crimes in connection with 12 shootings that occurred in the city of Compton that resulted in 3 deaths. But officers did reveal there could be a link to the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur.
Our investigation revealed that some of the motivation for the shootings that occurred in Compton may be in retaliation for the events that transpired in Las Vegas. But those of you who are familiar with gang activity know that gangs do retaliate for perceived violence against gang members of a particular set. The reason that we targeted the September 7th date is we noticed that we had an increase in gang activity and shootings beginning following that date.
Shakur's car was sprayed with bullets following a boxing match in Las Vegas on September 7th. The rapper died a week later from his bullet wounds. Las Vegas police were on the scene for today's sweep and will be interviewing some of those arrested, including a 22-year-old reputed gang member named Orlando Anderson, who may have been in Las Vegas that night.
Las Vegas Police Department has not announced any suspect in the Tupac Shakur shooting. There is one suspect who was arrested on a homicide which occurred in the city of Compton in April, who they will probably talk to. But as far as that goes, I would refer you to the Las Vegas Police Department for any information regarding the crime that occurred in Las Vegas.
I cannot say that we have pinpointed one particular person. Okay. There are some people, and I can't elaborate as to the names, but there are some people that came up early. There were a lot of names that came up through the course of the investigation. Many of them we could eliminate right away based on the information that was given to us, because we knew there's still some information we know that has not been made public, and it's helped us to eliminate the nonsense that comes in, and unfortunately there is a lot of that.
No, I don't think they ever had any suspects. I mean, I don't think they were looking at suspects. They never named. They even hesitated to even come close to calling Orlando Anderson a suspect. They did at one point, and then they withdrew it very quickly, like a day or so. Oh no, we never called him a suspect. But Suge Knight, you know, I think that was rather interesting. That Suge Knight goes into, there he is. He's overnight. He spent the night at University Medical Center. And Tupac, of course, was there too, but Tupac was in the intensive care unit, the trauma unit, and Suge was admitted into the tower, you know, the rooms of the hotel, or the hospital, spent the night there. And they released him the next morning. By the time the two detectives got to the hospital to interview Suge, he'd already been released from the hospital and they couldn't get him. They never went to his house. I mean, he lives in Las Vegas. He had a house in Las Vegas. They never interviewed him. Then they went through his attorneys, and it wasn't for 6 or 7 days that they interviewed Suge, and they interviewed him for about 20 minutes.
The day after, right off the bat, we're wanting to talk to the guy that's in the car with Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight. And we're working right away with that. And in fact, the night of the shooting, we tried to talk to him, but were refused access to him by the members of Death Row, attorneys. And in fact, it took 3 days to get to talk to Suge Knight.
There are a number of inconsistencies in relation to the crime scene.
First, that particular night, in the witnesses that were interviewed, there were actually 2 different types of vehicles, a white Cadillac and a white Lincoln Continental. I tend to lean more towards the Cadillac description, though the license plate the only license plate number we were given was on a Lincoln. Well, put it this way, the witness said that the car that the plate was on was a Lincoln. The plate number was thoroughly checked because the number itself was invalid, and I did every kind of mix and match that you could possibly do, and never got anything on the license plate number. As far as a Cadillac, there have probably been 50 different stories about that Cadillac called in. No 2 are the same. As far as giving chase, at the time of the shooting, and this again was some misinformation, this kind of misinformation I don't have a problem talking about. There's been talk about the officers that were in the parking garage at the time of the shooting. You got to understand, they were not in a position to see the shooting. They heard the shots, but by the time they got to a position to see, and they're elevated because they're doing another case, everybody's already darting out of there, because it wasn't like this shooting happened and all these cars just sat there. This was a very dynamic scene. Again, I'm doing that based on the witness, and again, the one particular witness that has come around, I put a lot of more credence to what he said.
Witness statements have even varied on who was the actual shooter in the white Cadillac.
With the information I've gotten from witnesses, one particular witness who has been helpful, it wouldn't be the driver from the positioning and all. And there were some witnesses that were not part of the entourage, that were just happened to be there. And again, descriptions were given of that, and the positioning of the shooter was not the driver.
No, revolvers don't leave shells, so they thought that possibly a revolver or another, that kind of a gun could have been used, and it wouldn't have left any evidence behind.
Physical evidence, no. Witness descriptions, that's come up, that possibly some other shots, but there's been no physical evidence of it. And again, there's only been one person that has said they thought that there was another weapon fired.
From the type of weapon that was used to the number of times he was shot, there are still many discrepancies.
I believe it was 4 or 5 that hit him. They had 10 to 12 spent.
He was struck 3 times, but one shot hit him twice. So he was hit twice in a way to where they were serious injuries.
One of the witnesses to the crime was Tupac's childhood friend and member of the Outlaws, Yafu Fula.
I didn't interview any of the witnesses.
I, in fact, interviewed Yafu Fula that night. Again, he wasn't real happy about sitting there talking to me.
The fact that the one person who says he witnessed the crime and could finger the shooter.
He did say he thought he could identify the driver. He never said he could identify the shooter.
Yafu Fula, as we know, Gaddafi, ended up dead a month, 2 months later. Both police departments in Orange County in New Jersey and the Las Vegas police said from the get-go, no, they're unrelated. I don't even think they investigated whether they were related.
When we learned that he was killed, I was on the phone right away back to New Jersey. So it wasn't because we didn't try, it's because of what we got from the very beginning with the attorneys for death row. From the interview with Suge Knight all the way through, well, we'll work on it. But no, there was no evidence of it. I talked to the investigators back there. It was quite obvious to them that this was in no way related to the Shakur killing.
There have been a number of stories in recent reports that implicate Suge Knight as being directly involved with the shooting and murder of Tupac Shakur.
I found no evidence whatsoever that Death Row or Suge Knight had anything to do with Tupac's shooting. I've talked to lots and lots of people, and including the LAPD, who seemed to think that they wanted to, they tried to pin it on him. And let me tell you, if the LAPD had any evidence whatsoever that Suge Knight had anything to do with either